Hello and welcome to the October Crane Research Forum. Thank you for joining us today. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Dr. Rebecca Dorr, and I'm the Director of Research here at the Crane Center for Early Childhood Research and Policy. My colleague Kathy is going to be monitoring our chat box today, and we'll be adding some housekeeping items there. These monthly forums feature research on emerging or key topics that impact the field of early childcare and education, and it would be hard to think about a more emerging and important topic than the one we're going to cover today. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Jennifer Chen. Dr. Chen is a professor in and chair of the Department of Early Childhood Education at Kean University. Her research sits at the intersection of early childhood education and psychology, and her most recent work has shifted to focus on better understanding AI and how it works with education. Dr. Chen is highly respected as a scholar and has authored numerous scholarly publications, including 3 books. She's an award-winning researcher, a distinguished scholar and professor, and a research mentor. She was recently honored with the 2023 Outstanding Early Childhood Teacher Educator Award from the National Association of Early Childhood Teacher Educators Foundation. She earned her doctorate in human development and psychology from Harvard's Graduate School of Education. Today, Dr. Chen will discuss the good and bad sides of using AI for teaching and children's learning, and what appropriate, responsible, and ethical uses are of AI in early education. I'm very much looking forward to this discussion, and with that, I will turn it over to you, Dr. Chen.
So hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you also to Kathy and the Crane Center for the invitation to deliver this talk on AI use in early childhood education. Greetings from New Jersey in the United States. And it's great to have you here. So welcome everyone, wherever you are and whatever time it may be in your area. Your presence here is a great encouragement to me. And Kathy had told me that many of you have registered for this session, and from many states in the United States and even 5 countries. So thank you. I am absolutely delighted to share with you some of what I know about this topic and learn from your questions and comments later on. As implied by the title of my talk, I will be discussing the fact that AI can yield educational benefits as well as it can carry ethical concerns. I will also briefly highlight what we currently know about this phenomenon and the implications for early childhood education. This presentation draws from my work on AI use in early childhood education. I published some collaborative articles in this area, and I have few articles currently under review by journals. In a nutshell, here's in this chart, I synthesize previous research findings, highlighting the challenges, opportunities, and prospects of AI in early childhood education. I will discuss some of them in this presentation. While you're looking at this chart, I will share an anecdote. So one day about 2 years ago, my then 6-year-old daughter was playing a child-friendly video game on the computer. As a concerned parent, I was concerned, right, if she was playing with strangers online. So I asked, "Are you playing with anyone?" She matter-of-factly responded, "I'm playing with AI." In fact, she has identified different types of AI that she plays against. She often remarks that while she can easily beat the amateur or lower level AI, it is much more challenging to defeat the master level AI in these games. However, she is so determined to learn the master AI's strategies so she can eventually beat it at its own game. So this anecdote shows how a child interacts with and learns from AI to be better than what AI can do, and also learns what AI can do for them to benefit their learning. Like many, I also believe that AI is the wave of the present and the future. While AI will lead the way into the future, as you may agree, the future of AI is already here. The evolution of AI has been a game changer for society with continuous and transformative advancements over the past 7 decades, in fact, since the term AI been developed. AI has been shaping our present and it promising to define our future as well with newer and more advanced innovations. It may be just like what William Arthur Ward affirmed. If you can imagine it, you can create it. We know that many AI innovations have been imagined and created. They have also permeated many sectors in society, including education. However, the practical application of AI in early childhood education is still in its infancy. While some movements have been made, such as research on AI curriculum implementation for young children, AI has not been widely integrated in the early childhood education classroom. So there's still vast untapped potential of AI in this educational space. Like my daughter, whom I mentioned earlier, many children today are growing up in a world where AI is nearly ubiquitous in everyday life, as evidenced from its presence in their immediate environments. As you can see on this slide, there's a host of AI applications, systems, and tools that are readily available for purchase and use, which you might already have, even yourself. For example, a modern home might have access to digital voice assistants, such as Apple's Siri, Amazon's Alexa, and Google's Google Assistant. This can also help with various tasks, such as navigation, information retrieval, conversation, and connection to other devices or services. There are also some smart household appliances, home security systems, and smart robotic toys. There are even robots as assistants in many public places. You might have seen them in grocery stores and malls. So at home, families may be embracing smart robotic toys to introduce children to coding, programming, and interactive play with AI to develop their AI knowledge and literacy. Before I proceed further, let's make sure that we have a common language about some concepts here. So early childhood education, as defined by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or NAEYC, as is defined as the educational programs and services provided to children from birth to age 8 or grade 3. I recognize that, especially for those of you who are listening in from other countries, thank you. And the age range of children in early childhood education might be different. For instance, in China, the age range of children in early childhood education receiving early learning services goes up to only 6 years old. Artificial intelligence refers fully to AI technologies and AI-powered tools, such as adaptive learning platforms, social robots, and conversational agents. In this talk, I will highlight some key benefits and concerns as well about the use of AI in early childhood education, which can also be applicable to education in general. So for those of you who are working beyond the early childhood educational space, and you might also find it applicable to higher grade levels. As I mentioned earlier, today's children are growing up in a world shaped by AI, where AI can serve as a catalyst for educational innovation, especially for enhancing teaching and student learning. So we, as educators, have a critical choice to make. We can either embrace AI or be left behind. And by extension, if we do that, we'll leave the children behind. So now, should we use AI in early childhood education? The question is no longer of if we will use it, but it's a question of when and how. The when should be now. The more challenging question to address is how. I will return to the questions of when and how at the end of this talk. Here in our article, I co-authored with Delaney, we highlighted the how by describing some notable AI's contributions to children's learning. For instance, AI-powered tools can personalize educational and/or emotional content to tailor to individual learning styles, paces, abilities, and emotions to benefit young children. They can also offer educational resources to children, such as those with special learning needs who may benefit from digital support beyond the traditional educational materials that they receive at school. They can also assist with learning a new language for all children, especially those who need it. Here, I share a concrete example of the benefits of Amira, which I described in the article with Ms. Perez, who is an early childhood second grade bilingual teacher. Amira is an AI-powered adaptive learning platform where children can read stories and record their own in English or Spanish. During the children's use, Amira can scaffold them by providing instruction and immediate intervention if a student misreads. Furthermore, it can also generate a comprehensive record of each child's reading strengths and needs. In all, Amira is a system that can amass, process, and even analyze extensive amounts of data to identify patterns in children's reading progress and performance, to make decisions on personalized learning experiences for English, Spanish, bilingual children, and predict the risks of dyslexia. And in fact, we will be presenting a virtual workshop on Amira at the Educational Technology Conference at William Patterson University in New Jersey on November 15th. Yeah. And Amira can produce a lot of reports based on the data it can gather. And such as on this slide, as you can see, like a report for the parents and skills diagnostic and tracking reports. So it can produce a lots of useful information to guide teaching and to inform the next steps of teaching with a particular child. So really individualized. And here, as you can see, is a scoring assessment after the child has completed a independence practice. And all the assessment reports can be shared with the child, with the parents, and with whoever are in the position to support the child's learning. And here, as you can see, this is a progress report displaying the data that Amira has gathered over time about the child's progress over a year. And again, this type of reports is very useful to inform teaching. And by extension, so that can enhance the student's learning if the teacher uses the information to provide individualized or personalized instruction to individual child. Here's another example of AI's contributions to early learning. The PopBox, perhaps you might have heard of it already, is an AI curriculum developed by researchers at MIT in the United States. They are designed for preschool children to learn to build, code, and program their own robots, as well as learn about AI. So it can really help increase children's AI knowledge and AI literacy. So while acknowledging AI's beneficial effects on children's learning, in our policy brief with Delaney here, soon to be published by Stanford, we provided 3 recommendations for parents and early childhood educators to consider. So here, since all of us or most of us are early childhood educators, and probably some of us are parents, but for the interest of time and for the purpose of this presentation, I will kind of briefly highlight what we recommend the early childhood educators should do. So on the second column here. So our first recommendation is to provide for early childhood educators to choose AI tools that are tangible and embodied, because so there can be concrete for the children to play with, to interact with. Children can see them, can feel them, and so they could have some concrete robots to look at, for instance. And so what early childhood educators can do is to work with them, the children, if they have their humanoid robots at hand, they can work together to create movements, routines for robots, and they can also learn how to really interact with them appropriately. And adults, like early childhood educators, we can also facilitate thinking, critical thinking for the children. For instance, by asking questions like, what can you do better or more easily than your robot, and how, right? So to help them to think more critically about the AI they're interacting with. The second recommendation was that we should interact with AI tools in ways that are synchronous and adult mediated. So the children in early years, right? And they're concrete learners, and they still may not be able to distinguish AI, as in Alexa, that they might have at home, and humans. So when they ask questions, they might think Alexa's really thinking. But in fact, we know they don't think the way that we do, right? They're just looking through a massive amount of information data set to come up with a question. So we wanted to make sure children learn to understand the differences between humans and AI and the capacities that each one has. Third, we recommend that we situate AI in relationship-driven communities of humans. So in this world we interact with humans, right? That's the best way to learn about relationships, among other things. And when we interact with AI, it's a very different type of relationship. So children can learn about that, the differences and what the capacities and limitations AI can have when they interact with them. Having highlighted some of the benefits of using AI in early childhood education, I will now address its negative sides, focusing particularly on the ethical concerns and considerations of what I described here as the ethical minefields in one of my articles that are currently under review. So here, based on my research and my understanding of the literature, and here one of the ethical concern is data privacy, transparency, and protection. Here, what parents and teachers can do is that to provide, if they see something that's not right, they can provide feedback to tech companies if they see feedback. And parents and teachers should also review data privacy policies and to learn more about it. And then they could also, more importantly, in addition to supervising the children on what kind of AI they use, and also to educate children about the potential harmful or questionable AI applications, tools, and systems so they can navigate it more appropriately. There's also the concern of psychological, social, and emotional impacts that AI may have on children's use. For instance, if the children overuse AI, it can negatively affect and limits the children's ability to interact with other children and adults. And if they overly relying on AIs for to interact with them or for learning, they can reduce the children's autonomy and agency, such as critical thinking skills and independence. And children might even trust or mistrust and overly trust AI. That can be an issue if they don't recognize that AI and humans really operate differently. And children might even attribute human-like emotional qualities and intentions to AI. So if they ask Alexa a question, so Alexa provides an answer. If children are not aware of or can't think critically about the response, and they might really trust everything that Alexa tells them, and that can be dangerous. And research has shown that sometimes AI can provide some really inappropriate responses that could put children at risk of jeopardize their well-being. So children and teachers can monitor children's AI use. It's one thing to monitor, it's another thing to educate children about the limitations as well as the potential harms some of the AI tools that can provide. So the children can learn to think critically. Of course, with younger children, it's harder to do so. As they get older, as they have more experiences and more, if we have more talk with them, more education, that can help improve over time. We also want to safeguard children's welfare by examining the biases and the developmentally inappropriateness in some of the suggestions provided by AI, for instance. And so the do no harm principles also applies to the safety and safeguarding AI's use by children. The goal is really prevent them to prevent harm onto children, child users. Finally, the safety and security can be an issue if the AI applications, systems, and tools that lack safety and security measures. So adults can be more mindful and more they can also learn to educate children how to detect and report unsafe behaviors. And although all these suggestions, all those ethical concerns, I talked about them one by one, and they seem to be grouped like individually. In fact, they are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they overlap in many respects. So together they give rise to the idea that AI can have some limitations and have some negative effects on children if they are not used appropriately. To safeguard children's use of AI in early childhood education, I also would like to offer an ethical framework that my author and co-author and I called it the power principles described in our article here. The powers principle stands for purposeful, optimal, wise, ethical, responsible. Again, all those elements are not mutually exclusive. They overlap to inform our to inform and require our attention on the ethical aspects of AI use. So here, I'm just going to briefly talk about them. The purposeful one refers to and asks us to act in a manner that demonstrates our clear intention, motivation, and understanding of why we're using this particular AI tool and what the outcome we expect to happen, and some of the examples of application. So optimal, similarly, is to act in a way that we can leverage the technology to its full potential to benefit children's learning. WISE requires us to focus on the reflection part of it. Sometimes we use the tools without really reflect on it. What does that mean? How did it happen? Did it help or did it not? And in what ways? So those kind of reflective questions will help guide our practice. Ethical. This is a huge aspect. You might have noticed that in recent years, there's an increase in numbers of ethical policies that have been developed globally and nationally and even locally. And there are regulations of that developed by tech companies, governmental agencies, and researchers, right, including what I developed here. So that tells us that how important that issue is. While there are so many benefits that come along with the use of AI, we also need to be mindful of the ethical concerns, like some of them, which I have highlighted here. And going along with ethical use is the responsible use. Are we using AI in a really responsible manner that takes into account the safety and security issues? And how are we going to make sure that we use them, the AI tools, for good and not harm? And so on the third column, I highlighted some of the examples. So like any teaching approach, including the integration of AI, if implemented appropriately, it can reap benefits. If not, it can cause harm. So now that I have discussed both the benefits and ethical concerns of using AI in early childhood education, what do you imagine children using AI in the classroom would look like? Are you curious about the images AI would generate when asked to do the same? So when asked to depict children using AI, as here, the prompt, and AI in Adobe Firefly produce those images. Is that what you were thinking of? Maybe not. These images are not exactly what I would have in mind. In fact, I picture children engaging with a host of AI-powered tools and technologies, such as using adaptive learning platforms on electronic devices, interacting with social robots, and conversing with virtual assistants, like what I have mentioned earlier in this talk. You may agree that the future of AI is constantly in motion. I believe that the field of AI in early childhood education continues to advance and expand. All relevant stakeholders, such as educators, families, researchers, and policymakers, must also keep pace in navigating the many moving parts, the uncertainties, the challenges, the innovations, the opportunities of AI use, so on and so forth. So while imagining the future, what actions can we take now to shape the future of AI use in early childhood education? Here's what I think, and you may agree. The key is education. And I believe that all stakeholders all need to be educated about AI and AI use in early childhood education. First, it is essential that children learn about AI and engage with it in ethical and responsible ways. They can also develop skills to teach AI how to interact with them appropriately and respond to their developmental needs appropriately. Second, it is imperative that adults acquire AI literacy so that they may model the appropriate knowledge, skills, and dispositions of AI use. They should also empower children, by incorporating AI education into their curriculum and promoting AI literacy acquisition. This includes implementing effective AI pedagogy that fosters ethical, responsible, and developmentally appropriate integration of AI in early childhood education. And as you may notice that I keep using the word appropriate because in early childhood education, and for those of you who go by NACE's recommendations. Our goal is to provide and to support children with developmentally appropriate practice. So it's really fitting for us to also focus on the developmentally appropriate integration when it comes to AI use in the classroom. Third, for AI to be effectively implemented in education, educators themselves also need support from education leaders, right? And so they need to be equipped with resources as well. Education leaders and policymakers, if you're here, you may also can help address inequities and accessibility to AI for some children who may not have the ability to access AI tools for their learning, such as those from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds. So after all, effective change often needs to occur from the top down. So all of these suggestions may sound easier said than done. I understand that. And nonetheless, I think that we must start somewhere. We can't stay on the sidelines while witnessing the rapid development of AI innovations surrounding children's lives. After all, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, we wouldn't want our children to be left behind. Then we must keep up with AI use ourselves, particularly in early childhood education and in education in general. In this respect, perhaps it's not so difficult to imagine the kinds of AI-infused future that we can create. While some early childhood classrooms, school districts, and teachers have begun prioritizing AI in their teaching and children's learning, a full integration of AI into early childhood education has yet to be achieved. However, we can look ahead to a future where this may become a reality. So as with the implementation of any new practice, it requires intentionality, investment, and commitment, and more. More importantly, I believe that, as shown on this slide, the three elements need to align for any practice to be successful. The three elements are 天时, 地利, 人和. That comes from the Chinese philosophy. 天时 means timing. 地利, context. 人和, human capital. So the timing is like, is this the right time to implement AI in early childhood education? 地利, is this the right place? Are the conditions of the childcare center, the school or school district optimal? 人和, the human capital. These are the right people to implement that. So now let's check for ourselves. The prevalence of AI in children's lives suggests that the timing is right for us to integrate AI into early childhood education, or perhaps even in education in general. The context refers to the conditions I mentioned of the particular educational setting. And if the conditions are conducive, the context may be right. So human capital refers to the professional competence of the implementers. So the implementers often are the educators, teachers. If the implementers understand the benefits and the ethical concerns related to AI use in early childhood education and know how to navigate them, then the human capital may be in place. However, if any of the elements is not right, it is important that education leaders address them to ensure that they are in place before diving into investing in AI integration. We know that change does not occur overnight. However, while prioritizing investment in AI integration, it's important that education leaders have a vision and set some realistic goals for teachers to accomplish. For instance, they might conduct a needs assessment of teachers' knowledge, skills, and dispositions in AI use in their teaching. School leaders may also initially experiment with AI in teaching and student learning with a small group of teachers. So they can aim to identify what works and what does not work, to refine the method accordingly before large-scale implementation. By taking a proactive approach and do so with open-mindedness and willingness to learn to leverage AI in education, with developmental appropriateness and ethical considerations at the core. I believe that we can better harness the power of AI to enhance teaching and children's learning over time. So on this positive note, I now conclude my talk and welcome any questions or comments. Thank you so much for listening. So it could be have an amazing day and night wherever you are. I thank you for being here, for listening. And if you have any questions in the future, please feel free to email me or follow me at ResearchGate or Google Scholar or connect with me at LinkedIn. So thank you. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Rebecca. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We do have some questions coming in, but audience, please keep them coming. We have a good amount of time left for audience Q&A. So please add those to your Q&A box as we go here. I want to get started with a question from Jared White, who asks, considering the rapid advancements in AI, what steps can ECE leaders take today to ensure they remain critical mediators of technology, ensuring that AI serves as an enhancement to their teaching methods rather than as a replacement or a crutch? Could you speak to that a little bit, Dr. Chen?
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Jerry, for this really thoughtful question. And that's something that we continuously think about, right? So what can we do? I think that we, include myself, I'm constantly learning about AI myself. And every day when I open my email, when I read articles, I subscribe to different educational agencies and I read about on the news, social media, everywhere. And I see AI, it pops up every single day. And in fact, I use AI every day, like for instance, with my iPhone, with my navigation, if I go to new places. So AI is everywhere surrounding us. And like I mentioned earlier, that we either can embrace it or we be left behind. And your questions is a really good one for us to think about. So first, I think that all of us need to be well educated, or beginning to be educated to the level we can be equipped with the knowledge and skills and disposition to work with the people that we can have impact on. Like if you are leaders, right? You're education leaders. And if you know something about AI and its benefits, and as well as its pitfalls, as I mentioned in this presentation, then you can help the teachers to navigate them, or at least you show that you care and you're interested in it. And that's the very first step, right? And you're aware of AI's existence, right? And so you might also, as a leader, seek opportunities for education, professional developments. There are a lot of, like this one, right? The webinars, right, on AI. And there are plenty of opportunities like that they can participate and engage in, and just to have a discussion with other leaders. And the same way, if they can do that, they can also model for the teachers that they work with that they can do the same. And they should also pay attention to the AI's role in education. And especially in the future, in the not so distant future, I see that AI will play a very important role in education. And I see that in some school districts are beginning to implement AI already. And so I always believe that, like everything else, it starts with education and our education. Then we can help educate the people that we are in a position to do so. If you're the teacher, you're educating the children. But if you don't know much about AI and they know more about you, which is okay too, and you can learn from them. Nowadays, right, children even know more, including my own children, they know more about AI than I do at times. And another thing is that although even children might know more about AI, but they might not know how to use AI in the most ethical and effective and responsible way. That's why we come in as adults, right? We have some experience about technology already, like the kind of old technologies on ethical ways that they might play a role. So we can step in that way to help children. So working together, knowing what children know, knowing what we do know and what we don't know, I think that's the very first steps. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Another question came in from Angel Bodie. What is your recommendation on ECE educators integrating use of AI with curriculum planning and implementation specifically?
That's another great question. Thank you, Angel. And so if we are talking about teachers, I would first talk with the school leaders to see what the policy is and what's already in place and what the vision might be, what their investments might be like. Because with any implementation, it requires investment, resources, and opportunities for professional development. It's not like something that we could do instantly. It might take some time, right? So I always think that we can start with small baby steps. And by finding out the context, like I mentioned at the last slide, is the context right? Do we have the right resources? Do we have the right supports from the administrators? Do we have an environment to do so? Do we have the technologies available to us? And so I think that would be a starting point. And of course, we can always read up on to what other places are doing, like maybe some school districts, they already have a AI curriculum in mind. Or we could read articles about it and examples of that, like for instance, like the Amira platform that my co-author and I will be talking more in depth about. And that could be a place to learn more about what's out there. And instead of really starting from scratch. And so there's some guidance there. And work with, I think this needs to be a collaborative effort, not just by ourselves, not just by teachers, but with educators, with teacher educators, with curriculum developers all together to come up with something that's developmentally appropriate. I keep using the word because we're in early childhood education. So we want to make sure that address that part. Yeah. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We have another question from Julie Planky. Speaking of developmentally appropriate, she asks, how early is it developmentally appropriate to introduce AI to children? And if you have any specific suggestions for how to do that first early introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. That's also a very thoughtful question. I just remembered my earlier I mentioned my now my 8-year-old daughter. When she was about 2, and we have Alexa, and she would start calling Alexa, and to learn that because we call Alexa, even though she couldn't even say Alexa, correctly, Alexa, Alexa, something like that. It was really cute and fun to see her that. And she would be song or something like that. So she learned from adults modeling how we use technology. And so as you get older, she's able to ask Alexa, Alexa, turn on the Apple TV for me, and thank you, Alexa. And then she also learned all those things. And then she also learned that Alexa is not really an AI powered, right? Virtual assistants. So it's not a human. So she would say, thank you. And then sometimes Alexa might say, you're welcome. Or sometimes, Alexa might say something else. Do you need my help, in other ways or something like that. So I think at any age, we can start, like we use that in front of them. It's not they using it. Like for instance, we could play a song with our iPhone for a infant, right? It's not they using it. We are using it. And they might be noticing, observing that we're using it, or toddlers, right? So as they get older, they like preschool children, so they might be able to use the virtual assistants themselves. And however, like with preschoolers, because they're concrete learners, even early years, they still preschool and up in early elementary grades. They're still hungry learners, so they need something tangible to look at. And Alexa would be, I keep using Alexa because a lot of children do use that. And I also noticed that Alexa doesn't provide appropriate answers all the time. So for instance, a 8-year-old might be asking Alexa, what should I get for my best friend, like a birthday gift, right? Because they had to attend a birthday party. Alexa might give a answer based on the database that Alexa can gather, right? And it might provide really inappropriate response. So I think at any age we can introduce it and may not be used by the child, right? But slowly we could acclimate into the kind of AI world in some ways. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Another question just came in from Joe Bird. Do you think if educators' use of AI in planning, implementation, and documentation of children's learning, it will impact their ability to understand children's learning because they rely too heavily on AI? So, for example, not being able to answer parents' questions in real time without the help of AI.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Yes, another really, you all asked so many like really thoughtful questions. I thank you again, and also really helped me to kind of reflect on and also add to my presentation. So yeah, so in terms of that is really a huge concern for parents, educators, right? Because we do see that children at times do use like screen time, right? They spend a lot of time in front of the TV or computer and using virtual assistants like Alexa, Siri, and Google assistants, and all maybe other types, depending on in other countries they might have other things. But here in the U.S., Alexa, you go out there, everyone calls Alexa like for assistance, right? And so it can't really limit children's ability to develop critical thinking skills because they really, if they rely on it. So earlier I mentioned that the over-reliance of AI can be a huge concern. And another related to that is that if they overly trust AI, right, Alexa, so everything Alexa tells them they do, it can be very dangerous. For instance, the CNN, I believe, have a news about this child, a 12-year-old. They're not like in their early childhood range, but even a 12-year-old, and ask for a challenge. Then the AI, right, tell Alexa says, okay, plug a penny into the outlet. Like very very dangerous if you do that, right? You can be, electrocuted that way. So things like that. And then luckily the mom had to step in and say, Alexa, no, 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 like, yeah, so it's been reported, that news. So we had to be, again, I think adults, educators, parents can play a huge role in helping the children to navigate so the ethical concerns. So thank you, Joe.
Thanks. One question from Mike Searson, who said most of what we learn occurs outside of the classroom, in informal learning settings, so especially in the early childhood years. How do we, as educators, deal with the overwhelming experiences learners will have outside of the classroom? We only need to think of the destructive learning and behavior regarding social media that occurred outside of the classroom. So how can early childhood educators impact the learning about AI that will take place outside of the classroom when they don't have that control?
Thank you so much, Mike. Hi. Yeah. I think I know Mike. Yeah. So, wow, that's also a really excellent question that that's has layers of implications. So outside of the classroom, so nowadays, right, children do a lot of things that educators are not aware of, right? What AI they use outside, how they communicate, and with other children and online, right? Earlier I mentioned my daughter who plays with AI, online, right? And her goal is really to beat AI. So children might be doing other things, and I think we, as educators, we had to work with the families and to get to know them. Usually we would find out, oh, what do you do at home to help the children to do homework, right? We don't usually ask the question, oh, do you notice that your child using any AI tools at home, right? Do you use them at home with them, right? So that could be, I think we might have to step up and start asking that type of questions when it's appropriate, doing like parent-teacher conference and to gather data, what they use at home, what they use outside the classroom. Do they take classes, extracurricular activities, like for coding classes, programming, right? So there are a lot of things I think children are learning, that makes, some people say, well, nowadays children are smarter than the previous generation. I think we are smart in every generation. It's just different things that we're learning. So now children are beginning to learn more with AI and learn from AI, interacting with AI rather than humans. So that could be a concern. It also could help them, but they will never be. I don't think AI will ever going to replace the kind of interactions that we have with humans, and they definitely can be enhancers for children's learning. And it goes back to the points that they need to be, we need to put in the safety and security guardrails in place and to make sure that the children learn to use them effectively and appropriately. So to benefit their learning. I hope I have addressed at least some part of your question because it is very important and the one that we will continue, I think, into the future, continue to think about how to connect the formal and informal learning experiences for children, how to bridge the two or how to use one to inform the other. And that way we can really help do justice to children's educational experiences overall. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. We have another question that came in from Amy. What recommendations do you have for teacher preparation programs to involve AI in the coursework or practice for pre-service teachers?
Yes, thank you. Who was Amy? Amy, yes. Thank you, Amy. That's a fantastic question as well. And I'm in the teacher education field, so I'm working with preparing our pre-service teachers, so we know. And I think, again, I think we all need to be educated about AI as well in education and how we can use it more effectively and ethically and responsibly. So we need to consider nowadays, unlike before, we only think about smart boards and computers. Now we must think about how to integrate technology, AI technology into our coursework, into our curriculum. And there must be a place that we have to, if we don't have a place yet, we have to open up a place to include AI in our pre-service teacher prep programs, as well as the in-service programs as well, like at the school district level, even at the graduate level. And we need to start introducing that, and we need to have at least a course work in like AI in education. And then it also need to be integrated into all coursework. I'm a supporter of the integrative approach, meaning that we cannot just, maybe have one course teaching AI in education and forget about the other courses. They need to be so embedded into it, immersed into the entire curriculum and how we can use it, like, AI, how we're going to use AI to help children learn about science, for instance. And how do we incorporate AI to help children to learn to read? What programs are out there like Mira? How does it help with English and Spanish bilingual students, right? How do we assess students' learning? And nowadays there are tools that can help assess the teachers with assessment, like I mentioned, Amira is one of which. So thank you.
Great, thanks. We had a comment and question come in from Isaac about regulation, and you've spoken a little bit about, educators regulating the use of AI in their own classrooms, but I wonder if you could speak a little bit to if there's any role for administrators, policymakers, or these higher level regulation of AI in early childhood education.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Isaac, thank you for the great question. So there are lots of ethical frameworks out there and globally, some like by well, even in our government, like the White House issue one, and their researchers have their own ethical frameworks. I think what happens is that everyone might be focused on similar things, but yet also kind of different. So we don't really have a unified framework out there that everyone follows, maybe for good reasons. If we have one, then and some people might say that, well, my situation is different and this and that, my focus is different. And and I know some school districts, they have their own policy as well. And even at the high ed, teacher ed preparation, we have a policy statements about AI use, right, in our syllabi. And so the regulations. So the question, I think a really good one is that how do parents know and even educators, how do we know what policies to look at, what ethical frameworks to look at, right? Is so well because I do research, so I look at them like I in the especially in the literature, and so um and how do we know which one to really look at? So that's a really good question. I think for teachers, and we need to have a conversation with the school leaders and what they think that they want to focus on, to invest in. And if they want to have a policy, they want to have a set of regulations, like in terms of what tools teachers are allowed to use and for what purpose. And are they allowed to have an AI education, for instance? Not every school nowadays, in fact, um, very few, I think, school districts really integrating in AI education, right? Or AI curriculum or aspect of it. So let alone like doing the looking at policy and regulations. So it's a hard one. I think like globally we have UNESCO and other places. Um, yeah, do have those policies. Yeah, I've written about them, identified them in another article, and now it just escaped me for all the places that they do that. But every country, I know Canada has one, UK has one, and China, I think, has one, and US definitely. They're from the White House, and yeah. But another question is that we might have them, but how much do we know about what they mean? And that's one. The second one is how we're going to use that, how we apply them in our lives, in our work. So those are also really critical questions. They might have that, and then why we produce them and saying that, oh, we did our job. Here's the policy. Here are the list of regulations. Go ahead, go and figure it out what they mean and do it, right? So we are at that juncture, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful presentation and conversation. Thank you again for sharing your work with us today, Dr. Chen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for attending and good luck, everyone. Thanks. Bye
Thank
now.
you. Yes, and thanks to all of our attendees for joining us today. When you leave the meeting, a very short survey will pop up. Please do fill that out if you're able to. We really do value your feedback and use it to inform our future events. Thank you again for joining us and have a great day.